Morning, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Conversations. So today, this actually came from a question from one of you a couple of weeks ago, and it's about the question was essentially, what are the big secrets for the people that you've worked with that are super successful in their weight loss journey? Like, what is it? What's the secret, right? And that's what everybody wants to know. What's the secret to weight loss? And you'll hear all kinds of people give their opinions and ideas about what that is. But I am going to tell you what I have seen in my practice and the clients that I've worked with for almost 20 years now. Um, the big themes, the what I would say are the most powerful or impactful things that I have seen in these clients that are really, really successful. And by successful to me means that they have found their happiest and healthiest weight, whatever that is for them. And you all know me, I describe it as happiest and healthiest weight. That's the weight that you can maintain while living your life, feeling peace, ease, joy, embodiment, whatever it is in your body. That is the happiest and healthiest weight for you. Okay. And sustaining it over time. That's key. Finding your happiest and healthiest weight and then sustaining it over time so that there's not this in and out of food obsession and diet roller coasters and on a diet and off a diet and obsessed about food, and where maintaining that weight feels like a chore or a job or difficult for you, right? So that's, for me, success looks like finding your happiest and healthiest weight and being able to maintain it over time. Okay? And for the people that are able to accomplish that, here are some of the things that I've noticed. Here are some of the themes. Now, this isn't comprehensive. There's other pieces and parts to this, but the big themes. And in fact, I would say if these things aren't done, this is sort of the baseline foundation. If these things aren't accomplished or we haven't figured these things out, then we continue in the yo-yo, up and down, good and bad, on and off, gain weight, lose weight. It's not sustainable type thing. Okay. So here are the three things. And before I say that, I'm not trying to tease it here, but before I say that, just for some context, most people, when they are looking to find their happiest and healthiest weight, they're finding struggle losing weight or maintaining weight loss, or they keep gaining and losing, or maybe they're at what they want to weigh, but they're struggling with their body image, whatever. There's some struggle around their weight, shape, and size. Most people are trained to look for the answer or the solution in a specific way of eating or exercising, right? So like if I'm uncomfortable or if I don't like the way I look, then I'm trained to then go figure out, well, it's got to be a diet or an exercise plan that will then lead to me not being uncomfortable anymore. Right? That sounds about right. It's sort of like I'm going to go look for a diet or look for a plan or look for a new exercise plan. And then once I do that thing, then I won't be uncomfortable anymore because I will have lost weight and then my discomfort will go away, right? As you know, if you've been following me for any period of time, A, that's not how it works. B, it's backwards. And C, it doesn't lead to the long-term solution that we're looking for. So if we're just looking to go out and find a plan or a program or a way of eating or a way of moving, that's not going to accomplish what you actually want to accomplish. So here are the things that people have done that lead them to that happiest and healthiest weight sustainable over time. Number one, they have found a way of eating where they can be consistent with their food. Notice how I didn't say a certain type of eating or a certain type of macronutrient or, a certain way of doing it, keto, fasting, paleo, whole food. It doesn't matter. Like there's not a specific way of eating that is the magic bullet. The through thread, the through line in all ways of eating is that it's consistent for that individual, meaning whatever that way of it, whatever way of eating that is for that person, they're able to be relatively consistent with it over time. They're not on a diet or off a diet. They don't eat that way Monday through Thursday and then go crazy on the weekends. They don't get so strict during, during the weeks and then have to go on holidays and throw all caution to the wind. It's relatively consistent throughout the entire year, which means it includes vacations, stressful times, holiday seasons, parties, barbecues, life, eating out, Friday nights, Sunday brunches. The way that they have found to eat stays relatively consistent over time. And when I say relatively, what I mean is they are very aware of how eating shifts and changes based on circumstances of life, like vacations and holidays, seasons, and birthday parties and eating out, right? Like they're really aware of how life's circumstances put challenges or pressures or have different results, different impacts on the way they eat. They're very aware of that. And that is part of their plan, right? So, just by way of example, if you know you're somebody who really, really enjoys socializing on the weekends with your friends, and you know that that includes restaurants out or whatever it includes, you incorporate that into your consistency of the week, meaning I I know that I want to go out on, let's call it Saturday night, and go to our favorite restaurant and have a margarita and um, you know, an enchilada. I don't know, making things up. So I include that in my consistency, meaning somewhere else, I am a little more focused here because I know that I want to do this here. And while that may sound like a subtle shift, what it does is it keeps people from this black and white thinking of I'm perfect or I've blown it. I'm either on my plan or off my plan. In other words, this is part of my plan, right? And I know how often I want to do that, how often I'm willing to do that where I can still feel good and empowered about my choices. And I include that in my plan. It means the holidays and the holiday season is included in my plan, meaning I'm not just white knuckling it, hoping to get through the holidays till I get back on track. The holidays is part of on track. And so I intentionally make decisions during that time that include awareness that it's the holidays and there's cookies around and that's challenging. So how do I do that? How do I incorporate that? So that's what I mean by consistency. My folks who have maintained a happy and healthy weight, sustainable over time, include that. They're not afraid of it. They're not worried that it's going to derail them. They don't expect perfection. It's not on a plan, off a plan, black and white thinking. It is included in their way of living. Okay. So that's number one, that their way of eating is relatively consistent. Number two, um, is kind of on the same lines of consistency, but it's a little different. I'll explain it, is sustainability. So however they've chosen to eat is not for this moment in time so that they're trying to lose the weight without any thought about how I will do it once once I'm done, right? And I find people fall into this trap a lot, which is like, nope, I'm just focused on keto or Whole30 or paleo or intermittent fasting or I'm on an elimination diet, or my functional medicine practitioner said I've got to cut out all nightshades, or whatever. Like there are these things that they have given no thought to. How do I sort of live my life this way? How is it sustainable for me over time? And is it sustainable for me over time? Because as you've heard me talk about in other videos, there's this false statistic out there which says that 95% of diets fail. That's actually not true. And without going too much into it today, maybe I'll do another video on that in a couple of maybe next week or a different week. That's actually not true. When people adhere to most diets, I'm going to use that term loosely, But in studies, when people adhere to the program presented to them and we retain adherence, they all work. They all work. What happens is that whatever they're adhering to is not sustainable. It doesn't fit with their life consistency, right? It's not something that that person can maintain over a long period of time. So we stop adhering to it. And it's the lack of adherence that leads to gaining weight back, not the diet itself or the program. And that's where people get it kind of wrong, is that it's not that diets fail. It's that most things are set up that we are not able to sustain it over time. We don't think about sustainability. We think about these moments in time. And so therefore we keep yo-yoing back and forth on this really strict plan and then letting it all go. Really strict plan and letting it all go. So whatever you're doing right now to try and change your weight, shape, and size, you have to think right now about sustainability, not when you get there, when you lose the weight. Oh, I'll think about that later. It has to be now, because the impact of waiting until later is that after you lose the weight, and if you've been white knuckling it, and if it's been hard and all of this stuff, you are primed for rebound. You are primed. If you're not thinking about sustainability now, you are primed for a lack of consistency, which is the first part we talked about, when you are sort of done with this period. In other words, when you get sick of being on what you're doing, when you get stressed, which I'm going to talk about in a second, when the holidays come, if what you're doing right now does not feel sustainable to you, you are at risk for nearly any of life's circumstances to knock you off course and for you to have a big rebound effect. So consistency, sustainability, and then the third piece, and I was alluding to it here, the people who are successful at living with their happiest and healthiest weight sustainably over time have learned to manage life circumstances without using food. In other words, they've learned emotion regulation skills, coping skills, awareness of when they're dysregulated, awareness of their stress response, and have learned how their food patterns coincide with life's events and circumstances. And they have learned to uncouple those food patterns and use different tools, skills, and coping mechanisms when life gets stressful or circumstances change. For example, I'm thirsty today. For example, they're not worried about holidays. They're not worried about parties. They're not worried about stressors at work. They're not worried about life stressful situations because they know that those things do not significantly impact the way they eat. I can't tell you how many a client has come to me who has said everything was going fine until, fill in the blank. Everything was going fine until someone lost a job, until something in life changed, until it was the holidays, until it was the stressful moment, until there was a divorce, until I got injured, until. I mean, I could talk about all the untils all day long, which means that the flip side of that is that for them, life needs to be going a certain way with the lack of stressors or circumstances in order for them to make healthy food decisions or supportive food decisions. But if life doesn't go that way and circumstances come up or shift and change, then we fall into patterns that lead us to weight gain or whatever, right? We have to uncouple that. We have to create this knowledge and scaffolding, like I call it, the sort of scaffolding, grounding, this foundation that says, whatever life hands me, I'm not going to necessarily always be happy about it. And I'm not saying that it's not going to impact me, but it's not going to change the way I do food. Right. And again, that doesn't mean we're perfect. That doesn't mean we never, say, oh, it's been a really tough week and I'm intentionally now going to, go get some ice cream and that'll make me feel good for a moment. But again, that is incorporated into the consistency of how I do life, going back to number one, right? That is all incorporated, meaning that doesn't trigger me into on plan or off plan, black and white thinking. Now I've blown it. And now I'm, a month down the line of binging and only eating junk food. I have learned to manage and deal with emotional dysregulation, nervous system dysregulation, life stressful circumstances outside of food as my main coping mechanism. And changing life circumstances doesn't change dramatically how I do my food. So, to recap, consistency, right? Can I be consistent, including weekends and all the things in my life, relatively year over year with the way that I'm eating? Sustainability. Is what I'm doing sustainable for the long haul? Even if I'm changing up the amount of food so that I don't need to be in a deficit anymore because I'm not really looking to lose weight, but I'm still consistent with the way of eating, the type of food, right? How I approach food, sustainability. And then third, do I have the ability to manage life circumstances without using food? Those three things are the building blocks, are the foundation for people who find their happiest and healthiest weight and maintain it sustainably over time. So you wanted to know the secrets. This is my view after doing this work for 20 plus years. Those are the through threads of the people who are really successful over time. So I hope that was helpful for you all today. Pick it back up here, Healthy Conversations, next week.